Hello, everyone. So we will talk about social engineering, how it works from planning to execution. And I am Dardan Prebreza, a senior security consultant and red teamer at Bishop Fox. I used to work at EY and I have studied applied computer science. I love breaking things, hiking and traveling. And if you need to reach out to me, you have the contact details. So the agenda for the day is as following. So what is social engineering? Then we will move to setting up objectives, defining targets and scenarios. We will talk about some tools and techniques that we use at Bishop Fox. And then at the end, how we measure success as red teamers, and then the lessons learned for our clients. So what is social engineering? So social engineering in the context of information security is the psychological manipulation of people into performing actions or divulging confidential information. So basically, the goal is to push people perform actions and that they didn't intend to, or divulge information that is useful for us as attackers. And the most common social engineering vectors are phishing, also known as voice phishing, which is a social engineering technique that uses telephone system to gather intel information for an organization, but also to eventually gain access to a system. Then we have phishing, which is the technique that uses emails to send crafted emails to the victims with the objective of gathering information, credentials, and also compromising their victim systems. Then we have smishing, similar to email phishing, but it uses SMS or text messages to lure victims into clicking malicious links or provide sensitive information via SMS. For instance, the two-factor code or the multi-factor authentication code. And then last one here is impersonation. So basically, impersonation happens most of the time during physical assessments where the attacker pretends to be someone else to gain access to a system or a building. But it can also be used with previous forms of social engineering. For instance, if you're calling and performing phishing, you need to pretend to be someone else to gather or to get the information you need. The next step is about setting up objectives. So when it comes to setting up objectives, it is important to understand the goals of a social engineering scenario. So most of the time, for most clients, it's about raising security awareness within a company. And it also allows companies to identify gaps in policies and procedures. And there are, let's say, there could be different ways to do it, and depending of the objectives. So is the goal or the objective to obtain VPN credentials? Is the goal to obtain email credentials and then access corporate emails, or to obtain other sensitive type of credentials or documents or information, depending what the client wants? So always the objectives are set while working with the client. Or maybe the objective is to gain remote access. If, for instance, it's a red team exercise, and you need internal footprint to then move literally within the network. And then it is important to define the social engineering approach. So most of the time, it will be phishing via email, but sometimes it might require a phishing or voice phishing, and it could also be combined with malware creation with the aim of gaining remote access. Again, this is the approach will be dependent on the objective set with the client. So if it's a social engineering campaign to raise awareness, most of the time it will be phishing via email, sometimes smishing. And then if the goal is to gain access to a system or to an account, it could be combined with phishing, for instance, and malware creation. The next step is to define targets and scenarios. So always ask for targets list. So even when it's not a simple social engineering campaign, ask for targets list, which include at least names, roles, and departments. And sometimes phone numbers could be really useful when phishing is in scope, because it's easier to get the phone numbers from the client rather than collecting them through OSINT. And always make sure to exclude the out-of-scope targets. Sometimes clients don't want to include specific people. Oftentimes it's about specific C-level people, but not only. And what if the client doesn't want to provide a list of targets, or if it's a red team engagement, then Recon and Intel comes at rescue. So LinkedIn is the best source, and we will talk more about it under the tools section to demonstrate you what kind of tools we use and how we collect this information. The next step here is defining a potential scenario. And this scenario is about suspicious email login attempt. So the goal here is to send crafted emails to the company's employees' targets, warning of suspicious email login attempt, and the users will be redirected to a legitimate-looking company's email login page. And here we are targeting failed login attempts. For instance, failed login attempt in the email subject. And the goal here is to intercept credentials securely before forwarding the user onto the company's legitimate login page. So not only that we will be intercepting credentials, but also getting working session on their account. Another scenario could be about expiring VPN passwords. So the goal here is to send crafted emails to the company's engineering targets, warning of expiring VPN password. So basically, users will get redirected to a legitimate-looking company's VPN login page, and successful credential interception will be used to masquerade onto the actual company's VPN platform. And here we are targeting the loss of access. For instance, we could send an email with a subject line like VPN password expiring within 2 days. And if we do this on a Friday afternoon, people will rush to change their passwords because they don't want to lose the access over the weekend. And the success rate oftentimes is, let's say, good enough to gain an internal footprint into a company's internal network through the VPN. So again, the team will intercept credentials securely before either forwarding the user onto the legitimate target VPN service or gracefully failing with a generic error message, like there is a system error or something similar. The following scenario is about IT help desk credential reset. So basically, the idea here is to impersonate employee with extremely urgent request and call IT help desk. And in addition to the password change, attempt to have the IT help desk disable MFA, because oftentimes the credentials alone are not enough if we don't have access to the MFA token. And here again, we target the loss of access and urgency. For instance, when you call the help desk, you can tell them that you lost the phone or your phone got infected with malware and you're unable to use the company phone, so you're using their personal one and you need urgent access to your company account. So once let's say the password change is made and the new MFA enrollment is done, then the team would proceed to log in with the new password and then enroll the MFA device because the IT help desk would have removed it. And basically, this would provide the team with internal access to applications and networks. And there is an example about this towards the end where we actually perform this attack with a client project. Another potential scenario would be targeting remote access. So in this case, we do it the other way around. We impersonate the IT help desk and call employees that telling them we found an issue with their workstation. So potentially, we could also combine it with SMS prior to the phone call, suggesting suspicious login activity. So let's say you get suspicious login activity from Google, and 30 seconds later, 1 minute later, you get a call from your company's IT help desk because we will be spoofing their phone number, and the call will look legitimate, and it will also match with the text that was received a few seconds or a few minutes before the call. So in this case, we are targeting the suspicious login activity or unable to perform IT update remotely. And the goal is to obtain remote access to workstation and execute remote application to obtain backdoor access to the employee's machine. And then through that backdoor access, get a footprint into the internal network and internal tools that that specific employee has access to. And when it comes to scenarios, there are several influence tactics. And the two that are mostly used are authority and scarcity. So authority is when the email or the phone call impersonates a superior person in the hierarchy, and the targets usually tend to blindly obey and do what is requested to be done in the phishing email or in the phone call, depending what attack, social engineering vector has been used. And scarcity is about phishing emails or phishing calls that include direct actions, such as password expiration within a day, for instance, and they tend to have a high success rate because people want to give their VPN access, and thus they will take action and click the malicious link that you have sent them or provided through text. And there are also other influence tactics, such as commitment and consistency, concession, liking, obligation, reciprocity, and social proof. And for a complete view of these techniques, the social engineering framework explains them into details. And there is a link here that you can easily find on their website. The next step is to talk about tools and techniques that we use for most of our social engineering campaigns, either standalone or as part of red team engagement. So there are several tools to perform mass phishing via email. For instance, GoPhish is a powerful open source phishing framework that makes it easy to test organization exposure to phishing. Then there are other commercial solutions such as Lucy, and it has quite some customizable options, and it has a good support. But I haven't used it in a while, so I don't know if they are still as good as they used to be. And then there are two very, useful open source tools that our team uses. So one is Modlishka and then EvilGenX. So we use both tools to perform a lot of our social engineering campaigns when it comes to intercepting credentials and sessions. And then the following step is recon and intel gathering. So Scrap.io is an online tool that has a Google Chrome extension and connects to your LinkedIn account. So the free account is limited to 150 emails and contacts, but you can create pretty much unlimited accounts with temporary emails. So it remains free at the end. And there is an open source tool called LinkedIn Scrapper. And I haven't used the Scrapper yet, but according to the commits, it seems to be working, and it has recent commits. And here at Bishop Folks, we also have internal tools such as a LinkedIn Scrapper, among other things. So we use that one more often than public tools. And we also use sales tools. So one of them is the Sales Intel Rep Driver. Again, it's an online tool that comes in form of a browser plugin, and it provides contacts for companies, including phone numbers that are useful during smishing and phishing attack vectors. And the free account is largely sufficient for normal users. So if you just go to the main domain of a company, it will list you with all the contacts of that company, and then you can filter only by mobile phone numbers. And then, you just start your phishing or smishing activities using those phone numbers. Then another one that the Bishop Folks team has been using a lot is Microsoft Teams. So Microsoft Teams has a feature to enable communication with external organization, and Microsoft enabled it by default when the feature was first introduced. And more on this attack vector can be seen in the following slide. So basically, on the top here, we have an option which enables, well, people within an organization to communicate with external organizations. And then there was this additional feature under it where you have like the tick button, which allows to actually communicate with anyone using Teams. And it's still very dangerous because you can create a free Outlook account and then create a Teams group like the one here. So basically, what you can do is you can create a group chat and you can add your target or your victim, and then you can add a second email that doesn't have Teams. It can be anything actually, and it will come in a form of a Teams chat like this without prompting, showing any warnings or anything at all. And what we have been doing is when you set up the name in Microsoft Teams, you can just impersonate anyone with the company that you are targeting. It will still show a small message saying this is a guest account, but so far this has not been, let's say, an issue for people to trust our campaigns through Teams. And recon, the external surface, when let's say analyzing your targets or your clients' public-facing systems. For instance, subdomain brute forcing is a very important step into social engineering via email, and not only, because if you do recon properly and identify legitimate login pages, it is crucial to find the company's main domain, subdomains, and their login pages, such as their VPN gateway, the email platform they use. I mean, nowadays, most of the time, it will be either Google Suite or Office 365, but sometimes also custom webmail login pages. And all these login pages and third parties, the targets use, they are very important when designing social engineering campaigns. And then, as you know, it is difficult to find an account that hasn't been part of a past breach of any third-party service. So always check for breached emails of targeted company. So during red teams, usually you can easily find already compromised email accounts. And then from there, you can pivot into either the internal perimeter or launch further attacks such as phishing. And sometimes even if the credentials don't work, the emails you find, they are a good step into the information gathering. Another important step is about domain names. So always check the company's domain protections. So some domains still use weak or no domain protections, such as SPF, DMARC, or DKIM. And when you find domains like that, or you find targets like that, this is like a jackpot, as it would allow easy email spoofing, meaning that you could impersonate any legitimate email of that company. But yeah, it's not that often you can find things like this, but it's still possible. And when you are registering a domain for your landing page, so for instance, if you are targeting google.com and you want to target their vpn.google.com login page, which doesn't exist, but it's an example here, then most of the time we would be able to register a new domain such as vpngoogle.com. And so in the email phishing that we'll send in the text, we can put the dot, but the link obviously will go to the domain we registered and we control. And also Punica domain names used to work well in the past. Some people still use them. Personally, I don't. So Punica domain name includes special characters such as apple.com here with some really special characters. And now we are moving to some examples. Here I have listed 5 different examples. So the 4 first ones are from actual assessments that I worked on. And the last one explains the MGM attack flow. And it has been provided or illustrated by CyberArk. So it is their work. So the first example here is the use of Microsoft Teams after initial credentials compromise. So in most, actually not in most, but in all red team engagements, external, like in full external breach scenario engagements, if we don't find vulnerable systems, we perform password spraying. So basically, we take a password and we run through against the whole list of employees. And oftentimes, people tend to use easy guessable passwords like the company name, the current year, and then a special character at the end, or a season, current year, special character, or a current month, and so on. So the larger company target is, the easier for us it is to find easy guessable passwords. And once we find those kind of credentials in, let's say, through password spraying, oftentimes we are, let's say, blocked by multi-factor authentication. And during one engagement, the client had the Microsoft Teams feature enabled that allowed communication with external organizations. And basically, what we did is we actually gained access to an internal tool that was giving information about the whole company hierarchy, employees, and so on. So one of the accounts we compromised was a data intern. And we suppose that this intern would potentially have access to their Azure. So basically, we went to this internal tool because it didn't require MFA. And we found this intern's manager and then his manager's manager. And basically, what we did is we impersonated his manager's manager via Microsoft Teams, and we reached out to him like, hey, we are performing data migration from this system to the other, and we are having some issues with transferring your account. And can you please just share your MFA code for your Office 365 account? And the intern replied almost immediately, providing us with MFA code. So while I was chatting with the target in Teams, I was on a screen share with my other colleague, and we were communicating. So he got the MFA code, got into their Azure portal. He got into their Azure environment, and then for 1 hour, he managed to implant a few things into their Azure. Even though the client detected us and they kicked us out from the compromised account, we still maintained access to their Azure for about 2-3 weeks. So it was a really interesting chain of attack through Teams, compromised credentials through password string, and then maintaining access into their Azure. The next one is the use of phishing after initial credentials compromised to impersonate IT help desk. So similar to the first one where we compromised credential through password string, we did the same for a different client. And in this case, we impersonated the IT help desk, and we spoofed their phone number to call the person we compromised through password string. So once we called them, we needed their MFA code to further move into the compromise. And basically, by spoofing the IT help desk phone number, we called the compromised in-place credentials to get the MFA code and then move internally. And the third example here is of a combination of OpenSMTP relay to impersonate IT help desk and then phishing to target employees. So this was a large university in the US, and they had OpenSMTP relay in one of their subdomains. So basically, we were able to impersonate IT help desk and send emails from the IT help desk email. And what we did is we combined email phishing with phishing to target the employees. So basically, we would call employees telling that the IT help desk is having, the IT team is having issues to perform some updates to the systems and so on, and that they would receive a link to download the latest update. So basically, while talking to the target on the phone, we would send the crafted email to them through the OpenSMTP relay. So it would add, let's say, more veracity to the email and to the call. And people would just blindly, click the link, because we would also provide them with instructions through the phone call what to do once they download the file. And in such cases, it's let's say a bad luck for the company, because it's difficult to identify this is a social engineering attempt. And I would say that most people will just fall for it. The last example here that we performed some time ago was to impersonate the CIO of a company and target IT help desk to have them change the CIO's password. So basically, a few minutes before 10 a.m. New York time, we called the IT help desk of this client, and we impersonated the CIO, and we told the IT help desk, like, hey, my phone has been compromised. I have malware on my phone, and I can no longer use it. And at the same time, I got a really important board meeting starting at 10, and I need access to my account. So the IT help desk asked a few questions, nothing too, let's say, difficult, and we answered them. And while we were, let's say, hoping to get the password of the CIO, at the end, they made, let's say, a good call on their end, and they didn't provide it to us. But later on, we learned that they actually changed the CIO's password, and he, let's say, congratulated us during a report readout call with them. And the last one is the MGM attack flow. And as I said earlier, this is a chart provided by CyberArk. And basically, what the attackers did is what we actually do for, let's say, legitimate social engineering and red teaming exercises. So the attackers started gathering intelligence about MGM and their employees. Then they choose targeted victims, so those likely to have high privilege in Okta systems, so through LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is, let's say, a gold mine for finding information about your target, because everyone, let's say, or almost everyone in a professional world uses LinkedIn, and you can filter by job titles and so on. So if you search for administrator, sysadmin, and things like that, you will find important targets for your social engineering campaigns. And then what the attackers did is they performed phishing or voice phishing. So they contacted the MGM's IT desk, they impersonated the privileged victim, and they got the IT to reset their MFA, the MFA of the victim user. And this way, they were able then to compromise the Okta super administrator and then additional administrators. So this way, they just kept moving in. They got domain admins and domain controllers, admins on the Okta seeking server, and global administrator in Azure. And then, potentially exfiltrate sensitive data from the network, and encrypt hundreds of XSI servers and disrupt all the VMs and services that run on top of them. So basically, it all started through information gathering, moving to phishing, in the same way as you do it for normal assessments. And the last part here is about measuring success. So from an attacking perspective, success can be as simple as having someone click on your malicious link, up to fully compromising the internal network of a company. However, the self-satisfaction is, of course, higher when you can compromise a high number of targets. Time to time, it happens to phish half or even more than half of the targets. And in general, I would say there is no failure. So there are times that due to the scope of the social engineering campaign, to limited targets list, sometimes it can be less than 10 targets. And the way how the scenarios were imposed by the client or the company, it might happen that you cannot compromise any single account or any single system. And the lessons learned for a company are the following in my regard. So security awareness and SE in general should not serve as punishment. So companies performing security awareness phishing campaigns and SE in general should not use their results to blame or to punish people that failed because of social engineering assessments. However, they should implement and fill the gaps in their policies and procedures. And well, social engineering would help to have continuous security awareness. So a new employee should take his security awareness training within the first weeks after taking the new job and not waiting until, let's say, there is a fixed date for the whole company to do the security awareness training. And well, social engineering and social engineering campaigns reveal also weaknesses into the IT security defenses of a company, but most of the time it falls into poor security awareness trainings. So it will help to improve the IT security defenses. And last but not least, MFA doesn't save you against social engineering. So it is important to know that MFA codes can be easily intercepted and successfully used by an attacker. Thus, an MFA code or multi-factor authentication code should not replace improving the security awareness within a company. So a good replacement, for instance, for 2FA or MFA or well, physical tokens such as YubiKeys, because you would need the physical token to actually look into a system. Thank you, everyone.